Cristiano Ronaldo refuses to get any tattoos because he doesn't want them to affect his ability to frequently donate blood. The ashes of Stephen Hawking were buried between the graves of Isaac Newton and Charles Darwin. As a final tribute, the European Space Agency beamed recordings of Hawking's voice to the nearest black hole. A Chilean boy with brain cancer gained 5 million subscribers in 2 days after the Hispanic community found out about his dream of becoming a YouTuber. A man from Oregon named Kirk Alexander was saved by not ordering a Domino's pizza. After 7 straight years of ordering every day, he went almost 2 weeks without one, which worried the staff. A delivery driver later stopped by his home and heard him screaming for medical help before dialing 911. Tom Block is a U.S. Army veteran who took a vest to the face during a mission in Afghanistan. After countless surgeries and learning how to walk again, he is now helping federal law enforcement hunt down pedophiles. He hopes that one day the Captain America shield in his eye will be a symbol that children are safe. A cafe in Japan is hiring paralyzed people to control robot servers so that they can still make an income. An 8-year-old girl once found a 4-leaf clover and gave it to her daddy for good luck. When her father died, she found out he'd been keeping it in his pocket every day for 20 years. When the story of a 5-year-old boy fighting a rare type of cancer went viral in the UK, nearly 5,000 people stood in line for hours in the rain to see if they could be a stem cell donor. Eventually, they found one person who was the perfect match. In 2014, Cristiano Ronaldo was asked to donate his cleats for a charity auction. The fundraiser was benefiting a young boy with a rare brain disease that caused up to 30 seizures per day. Instead, Ronaldo donated $83,000 to cover the entire operation and still gave the boy his cleats. Kendrick Castillo was not forgotten by his classmates after he died stopping a Colorado school shooter in 2019. This girl's mother passed away when she was 3 months old, and they don't have any pictures together, so an artist made this for her. On 9/11, more than 500,000 people were left stranded due to the closure of all bridges and tunnels in the city. In an amazing feat called the 9/11 boat lift, citizen boat owners managed to rescue and evacuate all 500,000 people from Manhattan Island. An African boy named Ulrich grew up with his legs bent backwards due to a rare condition. That was until a hospital called Africa Mercy performed a free surgery on him and finally gave him the ability to walk. A vet from Australia gave this parrot new prosthetic wings after they were severely trimmed by its former owner. A Russian dog named Shavi was hit by a car and left for dead by the driver. She was saved by a woman named Nina who took her in, nursed her back to health, and found her a new home. Shavi then managed to escape from the home and traveled 200 miles to return to Nina. This homeless man jumped into a river to save his rabbit after she was thrown over a bridge by a passerby. He was then flooded with food donations and job offers as the passerby was charged with animal cruelty. This is a photo of 2 parents listening to the heartbeat of their son inside of another man. The son was only 23 years old when he overdosed on opioids, but he saved the life of another man that he never even met. A man buried in snow captured photos of the dog who rescued him, and they're absolutely incredible. The author of Jaws dedicated the last decade of his career to the preservation of sharks. He felt obligated to make up for the fear and misinformation spread by his book. This father, dying of cancer, walked his 2 daughters down the aisle since he wouldn't get to do it on their wedding days. Even though doctors advised against it, Jimmy Doyle took a fight with Sugar Ray Robinson so that he could buy his mother a house. When Robinson killed him in the ring, he donated his earnings from his next 4 fights to Doyle's mother. In 2001, actor Mark Ruffalo had a vivid dream in which he had a brain tumor. The dream scared him so much that he went to his doctor for a precautionary MRI. Shocking the entire staff, test results showed he had a golf ball-sized mass behind his left ear. A man from India crashed his $700,000 Aston Martin to spare the life of a stray dog. Missouri surgeon Ted Rummel is paralyzed from the waist down, but that doesn't stop him from saving lives. Ginny Burton was a lifelong drug addict with 17 felony convictions on her record. But she eventually managed to turn her life around and graduated from college with high honors at the age of 48. During the Nigerian Civil War, the 2 sides agreed to a 48-hour ceasefire because Pele was in town for a match. Everyone wanted to be free to watch it without having to worry about the war. When Sharon Osbourne was sick in bed with cancer and giving up, Ozzy asked Robin Williams to come visit. He randomly hopped in her sick bed and her family went from crying to laughing hysterically. Robin cheered her up so much that she went back to chemo the very next day. In 2018, Salvador Dali's body was exhumed 28 years after his death to resolve a paternity claim. Officials noted that his mustache was still perfectly intact in its classic 10 past 10 position. If you die in Amsterdam with no close relatives, a poet will write a poem for you and recite it at your funeral. A Japanese pilot who bombed a town in Oregon during World War II returned 20 years later to present his family's 400-year-old sword as a symbol of regret. His daughter later said that if he'd received a negative reaction, he would have used the sword to perform a ritual instead. A few months before his death, a bedridden Freddie Mercury got to see an advanced copy of the Bohemian Rhapsody scene in Wayne's World. He absolutely loved it and approved of the song's use in the film, which helped launch Queen's comeback in the USA. When he was just 21 years old in 1963, doctors told Stephen Hawking he only had 2 years to live. Instead, he lived on for another 50-plus years, dying at the age of 76. After his mother died, a young man in Chicago got a tattoo of this. It's the sound waves from the last voicemail she ever sent to him. Stan Larkin lived for 555 days without a heart. Instead, he carried around a backpack containing an artificial heart that pumped his blood and kept him alive. He has since received a full heart transplant after finally getting a donor. In 2012, a German kindergarten teacher jumped down a 75-foot mine shaft after her 3-year-old student fell down it. She kept the child's head above the freezing water for more than 2 hours until help arrived and saved them both. In the 1920s, Hachiko the dog became famous in Japan for meeting his owner every day at the railroad station. Even after his owner died, he continued to make the journey every single day for the next 9 years. He's now a Japanese symbol of loyalty, as there have been many statues erected in his honor. In Germany, a 6-year-old boy who loves motorcycles was diagnosed with cancer. So his family posted online asking if anyone could ride a motorcycle down their street to cheer him up. They would have been happy if only 30 or 40 showed up, but the post went viral and over 15,000 bikers ended up coming. In 1993, Tupac received a letter from the parents of a dying boy named Joshua saying it was their son's final wish to meet him. So Tupac flew to Maryland to greet Joshua and even took him to a basketball game. Soon after the boy died, Tupac renamed his publishing company to Joshua's Dream. After Bax the dog went blind, his friend Buttons the goose became his eyes by hanging on to him and honking to direct him. When Workaholics Blake Anderson found out his girlfriend was diagnosed with cancer, he proposed to her right on the spot. When the Nazis ordered a Greek Orthodox priest to deliver the names of 275 Jews, he refused. He quickly burned the list and gave them his name instead. Robert Downey Jr. thanked Burger King for getting him off drugs. In 2003, he had a burger that was so disgusting it made him rethink his entire life. Then he dumped all of his drugs into the ocean. Ken Jeong added a lot of inside jokes to The Hangover to cheer up his wife who was battling cancer at the time. Before dying at the age of 21, Terry Fox was a one-legged cancer patient who ran over 3,000 miles in 143 days. Today, the annual Terry Fox Run is the largest single-day fundraiser for cancer in the world. A French bus driver has been praised for kicking every passenger off his bus after they failed to make room for a man in a wheelchair. Singer James Blunt once auctioned his sister off on eBay after she couldn't make it to a funeral. The winning bidder picked her up in a helicopter and dated her for 3 years before marrying her. The actor for Mr. Bean once saved his family's life when their pilot passed out during a flight. He took control of the plane and kept it airborne until successfully slapping the pilot awake. A restaurant in Tokyo called Order Mistakes only hires people with dementia as waiters. They're more than likely to get the order wrong, as customers never know what they may end up getting. In 2014, 8-year-old Tyler Doohan from New York saved 6 members of his family when his house was on fire. He only succumbed to the flames while trying to save his disabled grandfather, whom he often called his best friend. In 2006, when 2 dolphins swallowed plastic at a Chinese aquarium, the vets and trainers were running out of options. So they called in the world's tallest man, Bao Shishun, whose arms were long enough to pull the plastic out and save their lives. During the shooting of a Pepsi commercial in 1983, Michael Jackson's hair caught on fire. But instead of suing Pepsi, he asked the company to fund the creation of a burn center. In 2006, Russia installed the Teardrop Memorial as a statement against terrorism and to honor those who died on 9/11. When Paul Walker's daughter got married, Vin Diesel walked her down the aisle in place of her late father. Last year, police in Italy used the Lamborghini Huracan to deliver a donor kidney for an emergency transplant 300 miles away. Their average speed of 145 miles an hour allowed them to complete the trip in 2 hours when it normally would have taken 6. When the Notre Dame Cathedral burned down in 2019, the creators of Assassin's Creed offered to help rebuild it. Luckily, they had spent over 5,000 hours researching and mapping out the entire cathedral for one of their games. They donated their plans and expertise as well as 500,000 euros to aid in the reconstruction. In the 1950s, Dr. Jonas Salk refused to patent his polio vaccine so that it would be more affordable to the masses. He missed out on an estimated $7 billion but saved millions of lives. A Chinese artist created a stairway to heaven out of fireworks to celebrate his late grandmother's 100th birthday. In 2014, a small dachshund named Leo jumped on the back of a bull mastiff to save a 10-year-old girl. Leo succumbed to his wounds several hours later, and a bronze statue was erected in his honor. A Brazilian cow that managed to escape being slaughtered was found at a nearby water park riding the slides and lounging in the pool. The cow's owner later decided to spare the cow's life and even ended up naming him Slide. In 2016, little Anaya Ellick beat 50 kids from across America in a national handwriting competition. What made this so impressive was that Anaya was born without hands but learned to write using her forearms. Soldiers in the German army are allowed to disobey any order they think would violate human dignity. The Nestle company once refused to watch a documentary on the exploitation of African children in the cocoa industry. So the film's director set up a giant screen next to Nestle's headquarters and played it there. This is a 1991 photo of Princess Diana shaking the hand of an AIDS patient with no gloves on. This gesture helped to reduce AIDS stigmas by showing that the disease is not spread by skin-to-skin contact. During World War I, many armies employed mercy dogs to seek out wounded soldiers during combat. They carried first aid supplies around the battlefield and comforted dying soldiers who were mortally wounded. They had been credited with saving thousands of lives. This grandfather got a tattoo of a cochlear implant so that his grandson wouldn't feel embarrassed. Dr. Barry Marshall was convinced that H. pylori bacteria causes stomach ulcers, but no one believed him. Since it was illegal to test his theory on humans, he drank the bacteria himself and developed ulcers within a few days. He then treated them with antibiotics and went on to win a Nobel Prize. Freddie Mercury had a girlfriend named Mary Austin for 6 years before he decided he preferred male partners. But after he died, he left her his mansion as well as the bulk of his multi-million-pound fortune in his will. This is a photo of 6-year-old John Oliver receiving a standing ovation at his school after finishing his last cancer treatment and beating leukemia. Japan now has retirement homes for senior dogs so that they can get the adequate love and care they need in their final days. A gay man from Italy named Luca Trapanese adopted a baby girl with Down syndrome after more than 20 families rejected her. Being a single gay man, he was told by social services that he would only be given a child with a severe illness or disability. He was quoted saying, "When I first held her in my arms, I was overcome with joy and felt that she was my daughter right away." Mr. Rogers personally responded to every fan letter he ever received. A 5-year-old blind girl once asked if he could say when he's feeding the fish because she was worried about them starving. From that point on, every time he fed the fish, he said it out loud. After losing both arms in a bus accident, a young woman from India received a pair of hairy donor limbs from a dark-skinned male. But to everyone's surprise, the donor hands eventually changed skin tone and became more slender and feminine to better match her body. Ryan Jackson's father purposely injected him with HIV-infected blood when he was just 11 months old. He developed AIDS by the time he turned 5, and doctors only gave him months to live. But Brian persevered through years of suffering, and by the time he turned 25, his HIV status was undetectable. Danny DeVito not only starred in the movie Matilda, but also directed it. He even took care of the actress who played Matilda while her mother was in the hospital with cancer. He managed to get an advance copy of the film for her mother to watch before she succumbed to her illness. Father of judo Kano Jigoro requested to be buried in his white belt to be remembered as a learner instead of the black belt master he was. Anthropologist Grover Krantz agreed to donate his body to science on the condition that he was kept close to his dog. The Smithsonian Museum honored his wish. 6 Georgia inmates who were out on work detail saved a deputy sheriff who collapsed from a stroke. They could have taken his gun and fled with the work van, but instead used his phone to call 911. The sheriff's office gave the inmates a pizza party to say thanks. In 2015, Charlie Sheen publicly announced that he had been HIV positive for years. His disclosure led to a 95% increase in the use of HIV testing kits, likely saving thousands of lives. Ecuadorian police had to rescue a terrified sloth from the middle of the highway, and the rescue pictures were so adorable that they immediately went viral. A 34-year-old man with ALS completely lost his ability to move anything, including his eyes. When a brain chip finally allowed him to communicate again, the first thing he said was, "I need a beer." In 1975, a man died from laughter while watching his favorite TV show, The Goodies. His widow later sent the program a letter thanking them for making her husband's final moments so pleasant. A group of sperm whales adopted a bottlenose dolphin with a spinal deformity after it was rejected by its own dolphin group. The Falkland Island minefields became an accidental nature preserve for penguins who don't weigh enough to set them off. In 2005, Mr. T vowed to never wear a gold chain again after seeing all the people who lost everything to Hurricane Katrina. Don Rickles, the voice of Mr. Potato Head, died before he could record any dialogue for Toy Story 4. But instead of replacing him, Disney reviewed 25 years of content from movies, video games, and other media. They were able to reassemble enough dialogue to cover the entire film. A grandpa was about to pass away, so he made the perfect parting gift for his grandkids. In the 1980s, a little girl named Beth was suffering from 100 seizures per day and was about to have half her brain removed in a major surgery. That's when her mother called to PBS asking for a note from Mr. Rogers just to assure the little girl that she'd be okay. When Mr. Rogers heard about this, he flew to visit her in the hospital and even brought his puppets to cheer her up. Beth survived the surgery and stayed close with Mr. Rogers until his death.